Just how good is the signal on the DJI Mini 5 Pro with its OcuSync 04 technology or 04 Plus when used with the RC Pro 2? Well, in this video, I'm going to be doing a head-to-head against the DJI Mini 4 Pro. Now, the reason for this video is, one, it's good to see how good the signal is on the Mini 5 Pro, but secondly, I have had a few people comment on my videos to do with the DJI Mini 5 Pro to say that their signal hasn't been quite up to what they was getting on the Mini 4 Pro, and indeed I've seen quite a few social media posts as well. So I thought, hey, I'll make this video, and of course we can see once and for all whether the signal on this 5 is as good as the 4, and ultimately just how good it actually is. So let's get into it. Now, I have to say there is possibly no person on YouTube that has done more signal testing than what I have. So please trust me at the very beginning of this video that every precaution, every step has been taken to ensure that the testing you're going to see in this video is as accurate as possible. And unfortunately, due to obviously keeping the drone in visual line of sight, I cannot fly this drone miles and miles outwards. But ultimately what I've done is devised a high interference circuit in an area where I know there are certain black spots to really highlight the signal power of the DJI Mini 5 Pro. Now, just to give you a bit of a background history on these drones then, there are two types of signal system. You have got FCC mode, which is basically if you are in the United States, or in Europe and the UK, we have CE mode. Now, our signal strength is much diluted compared to the United States, okay? So essentially, we are already starting with a pretty low bar. Now, if we pop into the DJI Fly app and pop into the transmission tab, you can see we have got 3 buttons with which we can select from. We have 2.4, we have 5 GHz, and of course we have dual band. Now, 2.4 is basically designed for less interference areas. It technically gives the longer range, but it's more susceptible to interference. 5 GHz frequency is much better at deflecting that interference, making it ideal for being flown in a built-up area. Now, on older drones, this looked a little bit different. We had 2.4 GHz and we had 5.8. However, when DJI launched OcuSync 4 on their DJI Mini 4 Pro, they gave us the third band called 5.2, and this one was an absolute game changer because whilst 2.4 and 5.8 were quite high interference channels, essentially this 5.2 GHz pretty much nothing in a built-up area actually uses, meaning it can give so much of a better signal. Now, that third button on the DJI Fly app called dual band does exactly what it says on the tin. It allows the drone dynamically in flight to switch between 2.4, 5.2 and 5.8 GHz, constantly scanning the area to ensure you always have the best signal possible. And if it determines that your signal is dropping out, it can switch to a different frequency to be able to give you a stronger connection, and of course make sure that you have connection on your drone at all times. However, in all of my testing so far, because that 5.2 GHz is so strong, generally the drone is going to pick that and stay on it. Okay, so we can possibly expect to see that in our test, which we're going to start absolutely right now. Now you've got a basic understanding of how this all works. Now, to ensure these flights are as accurate as possible, I've chosen to use the DJI RCN3 controller, which of course is compatible with both of these drones. Now, contrary to popular belief, I've never found any signal difference between the RCN2, the RCN3, and of course the RC2 controller on that OcuSync 4 technology. Now, in order to further ensure that this test is as accurate as possible, I'm not even going to be flying the drones. I've set up a waypoint mission on the same route that I have done tons of times on my channel, where I know exactly what's going to happen, but it just eliminates any chances of me taking a slightly different route or turning at a slightly wrong point with either drone to ensure this test is literally as accurate as humanly possible. Now, this means that all I need to do as a flyer is accurately point the controller towards the drone at all times whilst it's on its waypoint mission. And you can fact check that I'm doing this correctly by looking at the compass in the bottom left corner. manner. Essentially, as long as I am pointing the controller towards the drone efficiently, this little dot right here will show as green. So before I begin the flight, I'm just going to open up Drone Companion on my device. So opening up the weather, as you can see, it is all looking good. We've got some nice low wind speeds. It's a little bit cloudy, but okay for this demonstration. And with no chance of rain, that is absolutely perfect. So as you can see, I'm flying at a low altitude of 50 meters. This is high enough so we're not invading anybody's privacy, but low enough meaning we're going to struggle with signal due to high interference areas. Now, for the sake of this test, I have left both of these drones in dual band because I believe that is what most of you are going to be doing at home. So let's begin the flights then, and as you can see, because I've set these as a waypoint mission, we should be able to keep them pretty much on track so you can see how they are both performing. Now, of course, looking at the compass, you can see that that is green. I'm going to be making sure that there are no discrepancies here. And what we're going to do is just fly forward. And then once we get to the end of this run, we're going to take a little left turn. Now, it has to be said that during this left turn, every single drone I have tried this circuit on has failed, apart from the DJI Mini 4 Pro. And as you can see, as we get up to this 10 here, our signal has just started to struggle. It's gone orange and then it's gone to red. We're getting a little bit of stuttering, but ultimately it has kept signal and it has gone through that bad patch, and of course it has continued on its journey. Now that was quite crucial because of course at that point we could have had a return to home situation, whereas this drone actually managed to keep its connection. But of course so did the DJI Mini 4 Pro, because that's also running that OcuSync 04 technology. Now we're just going to the final bend back to the home stretch, and as you can see, we're coming closer to us. We've got a full signal, and that test is absolutely basically perfect. Both of these actually behaved in the exact same manner, getting the same warnings at the exact same time. So that was pretty conclusive, wasn't it? Both of these drones performed absolutely perfectly, and the signal dropped at the exact same point, and of course it returned at the exact same point as well. That is the power of the OcuSync 4 technology on the Mini 4 Pro and the DJI Mini 5 Pro. So for me, that sort of allays any fears that many of you have had that the DJI Mini 5 Pro, this thing right here, has got a worse signal than the Mini 4 Pro. However, I would just like to show you one additional test, just to show the power of that 5.2 gigahertz frequency. So let's just run this footage then. And this is a flight with the DJI Mini 5 Pro in the exact same area. But what we're going to do is, instead of having it on dual band or leaving it on that 5 gigahertz frequency, oh no, we are going to pop it on that 2.4, just to show the difference at how that 5 gigahertz can make a big difference in a built-up area at repelling that interference. So as we proceed on our flight then, everything just looks absolutely normal as we have encountered with the previous flight. We're going to forward that on slightly and just make that left turn. However, this is where things get a little bit different, because unlike the 5 gigahertz flights, this 2.4 is really struggling. And as we get to the end of this little run, unfortunately, that 2.4 cannot keep that signal, and the drone has gone into a return to home mode. Okay, so that is basically the end of that test on that 2.4 gigahertz frequency. The signal absolutely dipped out, and as you can see, it's dipping in and out on our way back. We are in a return to home situation. Sometimes the signal's showing, other times it's gone, my controller's beeping, then it's not an ideal situation. And just to further show that it is that 5 gigahertz, if you're still watching this video, let's just run the flight again, but instead of fixing on 2.4, we're going to fix on that 5 gigahertz. As you can see, the drone has picked that 5.2 gigahertz frequency like I told you it would do. And if we run that flight again, move it further along, as you can see, when we get to that real difficult bit, it's performed the same way that it did in that first test. It's struggling, yet the signal's gone red, but ultimately it's kept the signal, and we have completed that flight all the way back to the home point. So there we go. The conclusion to this is, for me, the DJI Mini 5 Pro has an absolutely rock solid connection and certainly on par with the DJI Mini 4 Pro, and of course highlights just how good that 5 GHz frequency, well specifically that 5.2 GHz, really is. Now just a couple of pointers if you are struggling for signal, what you should do if you start getting this message to say that your signal is struggling. The first thing you should do is just fly upwards. The further up you go, the better your signal is going to be. And in all of my experience, there is one thing that is absolutely amazing at killing your signal between your controller and your drone, and that thing happens to be trees. So of course, if you are out in a wooded area, I do possibly expect signal to struggle. I have seen it so many times and experienced it myself. But of course, just one thing to be aware of is if your drone does enter a return to home mode and you are flying in a wooded area, might be a good idea to pop into your DJI Fly app your return to home behavior and just make sure that's set to hover. So if you do lose your signal, your drone suddenly doesn't start ascending into a canopy of trees. So hopefully you found that video useful. If you did, please hit that thumbs up button. It tells YouTube algorithm more people just like you might want to watch my content. Subscribe if you're awesome. Until next time, thank you very much for watching. See you again soon.